Greetings, darklings, from across the interwebs. It is once again I, the Duchess, Precious Ken. I am here today for a new Sounds and Shadows podcast. Real excited to be back on and see everybody today. So let us start out. What do I have in my hot little hands here? Unboxing. It is the new Saphira V album that got sent to me, Aerial Human. And I really like the energy from this. I really like it's kind of a change in sound for Saphira to, I don't know, more of a trance gaze, like higher energy than her usual kind of mixture of electronic music and smoky 30s club feel. And she's got, as always, a bunch of really cool guest artists on here. The big one, and is on the Sounds and Shadows singles chart for February, is the one that has Roger, sorry, my eyes are bad, but Ebner on saxophone from Pigface. And it's a really cool track. And anytime you're putting saxophone in a goth or a industrial or EBM song, I just think it's a great addition. I wish I saw it more. So our special guest for today, always the best guest that we have, is Eric Oberto. And I'm really excited, kind of coming back to music. And I know what that feels like, and I'm just geeked to talk. Hello, Eric. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
You know, I'm recovering. I'm hanging in there. I got my Bloody Mary and my coffee and cacao mixture.
Now, is that a spicy Bloody Mary? Did you go all in?
Yeah, I usually do. It helps get me woken up.
Perfect.
I don't know if the coffee and the Bloody Mary were actually a good combination just now, but, you know, we're going to get through it.
I imagine we'll find out later.
So I want to get started with you off the bat because I think it's an interesting story, and it was cool how you and I kind of met as you stumbled into the Sounds and Shadows group and then just reached out to me and kind of said, I'm trying to get my finger back on the pulse of music and into this, and you seem like somebody who knows some stuff. Can I call you? And I was just kind of like, okay, strange dude, I don't know. All right, sure, whatever, what's going on? And we had a great conversation and talked, and I love that sense of community and connection that can happen if people just kind of reach out and say hi, you know? So that was very cool. And you started to tell me about getting back into music and doing this and your connections with the film industry. And we're going to talk about that a little later. So why don't you lay out for me a little bit, though, your history and what resulted into coming back into music? Because it's an interesting story.
Well, sure. So historically, I was born with a condition called synesthesia, which wasn't diagnosed when I was a little kid. And I had dyslexia at the same time. Didn't know either one. My parents were not really hands-on. So I had this bad situation with like learning. Like I just couldn't focus. They considered me the dumb kid and pretty much wrote me off. And so I just became a rebellious, kind of bully, if you will, and decided, screw you all. This is the way it's going to be. This is the way it's going to be. So enough people tell you you're not going to amount to anything. You just sort of,
get a chip on your shoulder. Sure.
For pretty much. And then I, was really into like listening to music. It felt like the only time I was really calm was when I would listen to music. And I had these, I have this like second vision. So there's in synesthesia, there are different degrees. So there's like people who hear the number 9 and see like the color green. And then there's people like me who have like a full on, second vision going on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's like just a flowing, vibrant, 3-dimensional picture with any sound. Like your voice has a flowing, vibrant, 3-dimensional.
Oh, I imagine it does.
Of course it does. And so long and short there was that I got introduced through a friend of mine. I was at a young age. This guy was about 6 years older than me, who was into synthesizers, and he had an SQ80, as far as I recall. And for whatever reason, he thought I was cool enough to maybe hang around with, and he started showing me different music. And he started playing things like Nights Are Ebb, Nine Inch Nails, My Life with the Thrill Kill Cult, and my brain just went crazy. It just blew up. I couldn't believe there was like a whole different world that didn't know even existed sonically. And then what it did with synesthesia is it made images I'd never seen before.
Yeah.
keeping in mind, I thought that everyone was seeing those same pictures back then. I had
Sure.
no
Yeah.
clue.
That's just how things are. You figure. Yeah.
So at about 16, I got sick with a rare form of cancer called synovial osteochondrosarcoma, and went through all these experimental procedures, got really sick and looked like a kid who was dying because that's what was happening. And they wanted to amputate my leg where I had the cancer. And long and short, we didn't think I was going to be around. So I basically took all the money that we had for college and I went out and bought a bunch of gear. I bought an EPS 16 plus turbo and a whole bunch of other stuff. And I missed all this school, and it wasn't good school anyway. So I just locked myself in my room and with the guidance of that friend, just learned how to write music. And luckily I ended up at the Mayo Clinic when I turned 18, and they did this experimental procedure that saved my life and my leg and all that kind of stuff. And so I didn't die, and I knew how to write music now.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it started. And then
that is a hell of a journey. Jesus.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew a little bit of that, the synesthesia I knew about, but I didn't, know everything there. And wow, it's a lot of extra picture for me, like thinking about your music.
Well, I don't really talk too much about the cancer time. It just sucked, It was just not a good 2 years,
Yeah. It's not something that's a fun cocktail party story, I guess.
Yeah. Pretty much, who likes to be the inferior sick person? I don't like to use those crutches, if I can, although I have some unique crutches, but it is what it is. So after that,
I think though it also speaks to the positive of that. I mean, I get and understand not wanting to talk about it, but I think it speaks a lot to your strength and perseverance that here you are and doing it when kind of getting a tough start like that,
I think that the tough start really kind of gave me sort of the armor to just sort of say, screw you world, I'm going to do what I'm going to do.
Sure.
So basically that guy, his name was Ed Altunian, the guy who introduced me to music, we had a band while when I was off and on sick and still in high school. But we had a band called Reign of the Coven, real gothy, if you will, Dark Witches kind of thing, which was popular and good. And then that band ended pretty much when we recovered. And then I met a guy named John Miller who ended up being the co-founder of Tungsten Coil with me. And Tungsten Coil was sort of this weird phenomenon a number of times. And so we basically got that band going. I had a renewed interest in life, and we just went at it like crazy. I started playing a ton of shows in Detroit, and it just kind of, we made a pretty good stink right away. Like people knew who we were. We had a lot of people showing up for shows. And then John and I decided to move to Austin. I'm not even sure why, but we decided to move.
What was the time period of that in Detroit? Was that like heavy water factory days, or
that was 1994 when we did the first.
That would have been right around the time. Yeah.
Hal was still around back then, and Cyber Christ was around.
That was my old stomping grounds. That's why I asked.
Yeah. I know we're gonna have to talk about the stomping grounds heavily sometime. Or I'll be in town soon. We should meet up for
go to City Club or something. Paint our eyes up and be like back in the day.
Mental note. So City Club, Leland City Club.
Yep.
The last band to play Leland City Club before the mid '90s was Billy Idol. The last band to play City Club in the 90s and whatever was Reign of the Coven. My band, we actually talked the owner into renting a sound system, and we played Leland City Club as Reign of the Coven, and that was a pretty awesome deal. And then they never really used it as a stage again until like recent times during like festivals and stuff. So we were the last band until until things changed.
I mean, who knows? I might have even seen you then, because 16-year-old kid Ken would head down, or 21-year-old Ken later, and spent a lot of time at the City Club here and there. So I
lived there pretty much. I was being snuck in there when I was 16.
Right. That's how I was too as a kid.
And dating like adults. it wasn't so bad. So if you remember Ken Roberts, he's what's the name of that band he currently has, the female singer?
Pace.
Yes. So Ken was in a band called Charade, if you remember that. And Reign of the Coven and Charade, one of the first real shows we did was at the Ritz in Roseville. It was Reign of the Coven, Charade, and Brave New World.
Oh,
And
wow.
I remember more about Charade than Ken does, because he and I were talking about it. He's like, man, you got a good memory. I'm like, it's very impressionable. You're a talented guy. I remember you very well.
Yeah.
You know.
That's
So,
funny.
so anyway, so it was around 94. And by 95, summer in 95, picture it, summer in 95, June, Sicily. No,
The worst of times. It was the worst of times.
bingo. So we moved to Austin, and just John and I, so we left the rest of the band behind, which was basically 3 or 4 members, depending on what day you were talking to me. And we moved to Austin, and then put a full band together and added a guitar player. Before that, it was just electronic. And took us about 6 to 8 months to get something going, and then we did this first show at the infamous The Back Room, which was like the heavy metal, the Detroit Club is what I called it. It was this badass place that
It was
reminded me of
Harpo's
Detroit.
in Texas, basically.
Harpo's, exactly Harpo's. A little smaller, but nonetheless Harpo's.
Did you still always get your car broken into whenever you parked there? Was the parking lot the same in Texas?
You were getting into fights. You were getting into trouble. Your car was getting broken into. There was a club next to it called Club Chaos, which was more of like the Hispanic club. And then this was like the heavy metal industrial club. And there'd be fights, every night. There'd be something. And I was like, wow, I feel like I'm home. Because Detroit was a different place back then. Right. So for me, it was comfortable. I loved it there. I thought it was great. So we did this show where we promoted the hell out of it, had Austin Access TV out there, played one show, and like immediately we were on the Austin, Texas live music map, like overnight. And then it just sort of took off. We got invited to be on the Bloodfest tour. I don't know if you remember Bloodfest.
No.
That was run by Terminal 46, formerly Auschwitz 46. That would be Eric Gustafson's old band.
Okay.
So like there was a joint monarchy that developed in Austin, which was on one throne, it was Terminal 46. On the other throne, it was Tungsten Coil. And we did the Bloodfest tour, and we took that across the country. And it was basically like 3 industrial bands, a bunch of industrial bondage shows, piercings, just basically a big freak show.
Yeah.
And we were in this big freak show as one of the headlining bands. And I think it ended up on Real Sex 2. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's right. And so that was a big blast, and that just sort of launched both of us. They were already there when we got there, and that was the band we sought out when they were Auschwitz 46, and then they came to our first show, and then it just took off. And so we became like the band that played all the time and partied really hard, and we probably should have been focused on recording, but we were just this big party band nonstop. Yeah. And so that went well, and that went on for a number of years. There was a number of lineup changes. I was the only consistent member of it. And then fast forward to 2008, which was the last incarnation of Tungsten Coil. We had played South by Southwest. Like it was unheard of that an industrial band would be showcasing at South by Southwest. Sure. And we did it a number of years in a row. And then we ended up winning the Austin Music Award for Best Industrial. Wow. And the last show we played was at the Elysium for South by Southwest with Peter Murphy. And that was, I didn't realize I was going to be the last show at the time.
Right, but
it was.
What a way to go out.
It was cool as can be. So all I can say about Tungsten Coil, like leaving that where it is, it was, it meant the world to me, and it really was this thing that I was allowed to do for a number of years. And we never got, superstar, we didn't become 9 Inch Nails or anything like that, but we did have a good regional following. We did do a lot of really cool stuff. And so it was great for me. And then I was in my 30s at that point. So I decided, maybe I'll try something else. So I got into the financial industry.
Rebel by 20, you've got no heart, but if you haven't turned establishment by 30, you got no brains. One of those, you started to have that creep in on you.
I did. And, there was about 6 years of Tungsten Coil where I didn't have to have a job. We had a backer, and it was fantastic. So like we were, on buses, not in vans, and doing really cool tours and living at strip clubs. I mean, it was fun. I mean, it was just a lot of fun. But then that sort of passed, you know, we didn't have a backer anymore and the time had changed. And I'm like, I don't really like, you know, being broke. So, so I don't know. I decided to get into the financial industry, had no experience, didn't go to college, nothing, and really just put my head down and focused. And then it turned out I was good at the financial industry. And so I ended up being like number one at a few companies. And then I actually started my own company, which is still a company today called Innovative Estate Management. And I still consult for them, but I sold it to my business partner. And that's how I ended up looking towards entertainment again. I had this void, you know, like a number of, you know, over a decade had gone by, you know, time slips by if you're not watching. And so I decided I wanted to get back into music. But the other part of the story is, so about 6 years ago now, 2015, I guess it was. This is when I was still at a different financial company, their number one regional vice president, agent, blah, blah, blah. I had a condition developed called sudden sensory neural hearing loss, which means I pretty much went deaf in my right ear instantaneously. So it wasn't like, you know, I didn't wear earplugs. I was the guy who always handed out earplugs to everybody, and I'm the guy that goes deaf. I mean, what the hell is that, right? But so I'm sitting there talking to my wife on the couch. Next thing you know, snap. And I felt this massive pressure and this pop. And then it went from perfect hearing to all of the high frequencies, most of the mids and most of the lows just gone. And then what was left is this sort of 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it's still like terrifying. That. It sucks. And it's like that now. So it took this anesthesia and screwed up everything. You know, I'm a play-by-ear musician. Don't talk to me about theory and music. I have no idea what you're talking about. I just painted musical pictures, and all of a sudden that was destroyed. So I went into this huge state of depression and thought, you know, it's done. And I wasn't professionally doing music, but I was always writing. You know, I was always creating, and then it just turned off. So I went into this like massive depression, like just.
Oh yeah, it was. Well, you literally did lose a sense, but. You know what I mean? Just a whole aspect of your life felt voided at this point.
Totally. So, you know, I became pretty hard to be around for a while.
Sure.
And it really just affected me for like a 2-year period where I just was like not a happy guy, not comfortable with anything. And a few years went by and I don't know, I guess I got ornery. I was just, you know, there's gotta be a way for me to get back to doing this. There's just got to be a way. So then you got, you know, talking about a total of a 6-year period. So 2 years of depressed, 2 years of like, well, I don't know, maybe I'll be okay, stabilizing. And then another 2 years of just failing over and over again, like trying to just reprogram my brain to do it. And
relearning how to do something you've known your whole life from scratch like that.
It's like a foreign language.
People don't always understand how hard that is. I always use the analogy, say if you skied your whole life and then you might be a really good skier, but if you try and learn how to snowboard all of a sudden, it's almost harder than if you just tried to snowboard for the first time with no preconceived knowledge, because you still have all this knowledge, but it just doesn't work or fit the pattern of how to do it, muscle memory anymore.
It almost, that's a good way of looking at it. And to me, I was thinking about like, say like a really older infirmed person where their body doesn't do what they want it to do anymore. That's what it reminded me of. So then your mind's playing tricks on you all the time, you know? So finally, through a series of using, I had a buddy here, the guy, John Robert Craig, he does most of the audio production for me because I still can't really trust my ears completely when it comes down to the final product. He turned me on to some different tools. I use Ableton. I switched over to Ableton actually, which was a Curse Mackey recommendation. So you gotta get Ableton. So I did.
If Curse Mackey gives you a recommendation, you should probably listen.
Yeah, pretty much. And I like it a lot. So it turned out to be. I'm glad I did. But he showed me a lot of different programs where I could see the spectrum. He's like, you know, your mind knows where you want sound to be. Now you just need to be able to see where sound is and kind of go that way. And he really helped retrain me on proper utilization of EQ visually.
Yeah.
You know, and so once I started to think about it more visually, then my mind sort of would kick back in with what I already knew. And then after a lot of trial and error, you start to visually understand what sonically is happening. And it's
that is so interesting. You know what really like popped in my head when you said that is I thought to myself, what if Beethoven had Ableton? What if you could go back in time for the reason you said and teach Beethoven to use Ableton? What could he have written? You know, like later on, because he had to do the same thing, basically retrain himself and understand how to still write music that you couldn't hear, you know? And wow, yeah, that food for thought. That'd make a good time traveling movie.
That sure would. And you're totally right. The possibility of that, I mean, it's sort of, we'll only be able to.
Everybody's like, oh, they want to go back in time and cap Hitler, you know, in his crib or something. No. We could make it so Beethoven could use Ableton. That would be the real use of a time machine.
Just thinking about that possibility would be amazing. You know, I was thinking, so, you know, the synesthesia had its own pictures. I think maybe, as I'm thinking about it, I think maybe where it really clicked is the sonic representation of sound waves. You know, it's not identically what I would see with synesthesia, but it was familiar, you know, because when you watch a sound wave move, it's doing that. And then you remember those like old like Windows media player, you know, you'd have like the design, the chaos designs, whatever they called, like the moving EQ, if you will. More like that. But so that kind of stuck into my mind. And then when I would watch the sound wave, like the visual dance of the sound, it just became something I could understand. So then the happy medium is really me, you know, turning to this direction, putting my one good ear in the center of the stereo field as at least a reference point. So every song is kind of like climbing Mount Everest, but you know, there's benefits to climbing Mount Everest.
Right. You prepare better. Because you were forced to work harder, you know, to do what used to come easier to you, it also makes you think about it on a more precise level, I imagine.
So that is the maybe that's ironic that we'll say, well, perhaps the irony is that the kind of musician I am now, I'm far more disciplined than I ever have been. And it almost makes you kick yourself because, wow, imagine if I would have been as disciplined as I was before with everything.
Isn't that always the way?
You know?
You don't appreciate something until it's not there, for sure.
Tom Kiefer of Cinderella sang it best. Don't know what you got till it's gone. Yeah. So that's kind of how it evolved.
I do want to move forward a little bit, you know, because I love this. And this is really in a lot of things of your history I didn't know, and people even that, you know, I didn't know, you know, their impact on you, like Curse and whatnot. But so you went through a period of kind of getting out of music and coming back, and you started releasing music again. And so at the end here, we're going to talk about and play your new single. But tell me a little bit about what you started out doing and what your hope is with it.
So the start off was a friend of a friend was in town from Detroit, and we met up for drinks in Denton, Texas, and some other people were there as well. And there was this guy there who does like horror films. Mm-hmm. And I said to him, you know, without fully knowing if I could, I said, hey, you know, I do music. Yeah. And I love doing horror stuff. If you ever need any music for your horror films, let me know. So months went by, I never heard from the guy. And then one day out of the blue, he calls me up and says, hey, I know we talked about soundtrack stuff and I'm interested in that, but you know, you act as well, right? And I said, sure. And he said, well, don't take this the wrong way, but I think you would make the perfect demon for my film. And I was like,
I mean, how did you take that the wrong way?
Yeah,
right?
exactly. I'm like,
Who doesn't
no,
want to be a demon?
I've been striving to be a demon my whole life, sir. So he asked me to do this part, which turned out to be Amityville Cult. Just, pretty cool, like low budget film. But it was kind of fun to kind of get
Wasn't
into
it
that.
in like an award show or something too? Wasn't it, or a film festival?
It's been in a number of things, surprisingly, and then we got national distribution out of it, and it's in Walmart stores, and it's not an amazing.
Once
film.
you're in Walmart, that's legit. I mean,
well, it's totally legit, and it was their first film, so I mean, everybody was kind of new. I was the newest, but it ended up I got involved in some of the post-production work on it as well, and which is a whole different story, but. Long and short, that little film kind of skyrocketed. So I had an idea for a song called Darkness Never Lies, which is about, the lies that we tell ourselves and others, which are, the fallacies that we all live, It's sort of like ignore that voice inside that says, don't do that. And then you go ahead and do it anyway.
Yeah.
Or,
which goes along with that whole demon temptation, self-destruction theme,
Yeah. And so that was like a concept. And then I read the script, the film, and I read my part, and I was like, oh, I know what to do. So I ended up writing the rest of the song and so forth. And then I had this visual idea that was sort of an homage to synesthesia. It's a color exhaustion experiment. Have you seen that video I did for Darkness Never Lies?
Yes, very, very cool.
Thanks.
And yes, it is definitely a color assault fever dream for sure.
Pretty much. And each of those colors and like the half face is like the different quadrants of your mind. And, it's sort of trying to give people an understanding of like what goes on in my head. So I did that. And then I went ahead and learned, I directed that video and produced it and then edited the whole thing. My wife assisted me on it as well, my wife Tammy, but I'd never done that before, and everyone's like, well, that's a heck of a first experiment.
Yeah. And
I spent a lot of time on it, but all of a sudden, because of this adventure back, into writing music and becoming this disciplined person, I didn't feel like I couldn't do it. So I went ahead and just did it,
Yeah.
And so now I've got a lot of interest in that level. And then I liked acting. And so
Sure.
It was really
I think that makes a lot of sense, though. I mean, from everything you're telling me in this sense, I mean, in some ways, I mean, yes, this is something that makes your life more complicated, but in some ways, an ability to combine sound and visual comes naturally for you in almost like I don't know, a vision sense that's how you view things anyway. So you doing music videos seems like a very natural progression.
I think so. And I think it's really kind of, because I keep trying to prove to them. I'm my own worst critic. So I have to prove. Yeah. And so, you know what I mean? Like I have to prove to myself every day, that I'm not shit. And so each, mountain that you climb, when you summit, the closest thing I could say is I summited Mount Whitney when I lived in California. That's like, I don't know, 15,000 feet. Like when you get above the cloud line, it's snow and it's thin air and it's cold as shit. And I still remember that feeling when
I'll be on my couch if you need me.
Well, I take good pictures when I'm up there.
There you go. I'll look at those. I'll look at your gram, and then I won't have to hike my fat ass up there. Good thinking.
There's other fun things. Like it pushed me also. I started skydiving in the last couple of years, and wow, was I missing out on something amazing. Like that is...
That's another one you're not going to catch me at. I think that's awesome. I know a lot of, like Colin and Maya, my bass just recently did it, but yeah, there's no reason to jump out of a fully functional aircraft. Nope. I'm good.
So it's weird.
It's the same reason for me that I can ride a roller coaster. Like I bungee jumped when I was younger, but I could ride a roller coaster, but not a Ferris wheel, because I can deal with, it's over. I can't deal with, yeah, no, that's too much. No, it has to be over quickly. It can't just,
So have you ridden Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point?
I don't think so. If that's a new, I haven't been to Cedar or an amusement park, I think, in probably like 9 years or something like that.
So I'm considering this year, I might do the Kings Island Cedar Point trip. I might do them both.
Oh, wow.
Maybe I'll hit you up.
Yeah, let me know. Maybe we could do a podcast of goths on roller coasters, and
Let's
we'll
do
bring
it.
a GoPro, and we'll talk about and we'll throw some Adoration Destroyed or music or something on in the background while we ride these roller coasters.
Let's do it. I'm
I love it.
overdue.
That sounds like a party.
I'm overdue for both parks. Those were a big part of my childhood, and I'm down. So let's do it.
So anyhow, yeah. So you did the video and put it out, and then you had a remix on this as well, correct?
Yeah. So that's a cool story because Eric Gustafson, Adoration Destroyed, did the remix, and he and I, kind of lost touch over the years. There was a little weird spat back in the day between Terminal 46 and Tungsten Coil. Yeah, it was stupid.
That stuff happens.
Yep, singer versus singer. Anyway, so Eric and I kind of got caught up in the fallout of that. We didn't have a problem with each other, that's what happened. So I would reach out to him here and there for idle chat. And then one day I just started talking to him and I said, hey, we should collaborate on something sometime.
Nice.
And so he said, well, I do remixes. And I'm like, that would be cool. And that's kind of how it got started. And, I'm so impressed with the mix he came up with. I mean, he did a killer job. And then myself and John Robert Craig did the actual mastering of it. Yeah. And he gave us such good material to work with. It was a lot of fun,
I was just going to try and warn everybody out there. I have had a remix by Eric of an
remember this story.
And I'll warn all of you out there that if you get Eric to remix one of your songs, there's at least a 90% chance that his remix will be better than your song. So make sure that you have the confidence to deal with that when it happens.
Absolutely. And that's a good way of looking at it too. And he, the song that I did, it's slower, it's very somber, it's a very dark song. And then he kept it dark and then turned it into this, as he says, DJ dance floor banger of a song.
Yeah.
The way he said that. It's amazing to me that it's even the same song, and I like them both for completely different reasons, which is great. So
he somehow made me sound like Machines of Loving Grace. So I'll always love him for that, vocals.
Well, and that turned into just a great thing for he and I to sort of a bridge back,
Yeah.
And so then I guess we're fast forwarding. So I did you watch that remix video that I did?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like.
I think I made that song of the day on Sounds and Shadows at one point.
Well, the video I just put up today.
Oh, the video you just sent out. Yeah.
Check it out. It's like a complete acid trip. So I remixed the video. Instead of coming up with a completely different video, I said, well, it's a remix. So I remixed the video and turned.
Remixed the video. Yeah.
So then he and I got to talking about this new song that's coming up, Closer Than Ever Before. And, he does Eric Gustafson cinematography, and I like the work he does. And so I put together this 15-person crew, and we shot at this building here in Dallas called Off the Grid, which is the building I got married in 10 years ago. And here's the story you'll appreciate. So the owner of the building is from Detroit, and he bought a bunch of buildings downtown Dallas when everyone considered those neighborhoods to be complete shit, the ghetto. And he bought them because they reminded him of Detroit. And this is a 3-story exposed brick, industrial staircases, rooftop with the Dallas view in the background. Gorgeous, gorgeous building. We had a great wedding there. And I'm like, I'm going to go back there. And my wife and I were going to renew our vows at 10 years. I don't know why, because I guess people do that. And then COVID screwed that up. So I was like, well, that's not going to happen. And well, I thought about it. I'm like, who cares? We're good. We love each other. Let's go on vacation. So we did. And then I'm like, but I had this idea to shoot this music video because it's the perfect building to film in. It really, really is. And it had some meaning. So I got to use the building for something. So I enlisted Eric to come with, and he hadn't worked. It's mostly him, Yeah. And he's more of a one-man show kind of thing. So it was the first time he got involved, and I used a bunch of contacts from the film industry and brought in actors, and we shot like a whole storyline that Eric and I came up with for the song. And
so you gave him a bunch of extra tools he'd never got to play with before to see what he could do with it. Yeah.
Well, and he got to be involved with me in the chaos. We shot 2 days worth of shooting in one 15-hour marathon till 3, 4 in the morning or something like that. And it was up and down these steep staircases all day long. And it was, we were beat to shit when we were done. Yeah. But the end result was great. So he just finished the video, and that's going to come up here shortly. March 2nd, I believe, is the release date. Very cool. He and I got to spend a few days together at my place and really connected. And, so if Eric's watching, my love for you, bro, is eternal. And I'm so glad to have you back in my life, because he and I together do great things.
I got to tell you, I mean, Eric is definitely just one of the great dudes in this scene. And I kind of one of, when I came back and started up with Amaranth and getting Sounds and Shade, was kind of one of the first people that I really connected with getting back into doing the scene, and has always been a huge supporter of us. So yeah, no, same. I love Eric. He's great, and the work he does is amazing.
Yeah, it's hard not to love Eric. He's just genuine. In a world where genuine people are hard to find, he's one of them.
Yeah. So going along with this theme, nice jumping off point here. Here on Sound Shows, we're a music review page. And so I always like to hear from artists, what are some of the artists that you're listening to that are inspiring you in the modern scene? And so Eric is a great example. We did that one, and the Adoration Destroyed. That's great. Is there anybody else that you kind of want to shout out that's been spinning your wheels lately?
I do. So there was a song that just caught me by surprise, and it was this Dog Tablet, Start to Fade.
Freaking Martin.
With Jared Lausch on vocals.
Jared.
Yeah, whose vocals I've always adored. And we had some history back in the days of, we played a couple of shows with them back in Austin and Dallas area, and spent some crazy times. And anyway, hearing Jared back in there with this mix, and like this song I was surprised that there wasn't more talk about this song. Like, it seemed to kind of just end up under the radar, and I'm like high on it. I thought it was amazing. It was so dark and so revealing and so telling, as we all age, and the reality of looking back, and musically and lyrically, it's like this perfect combination of just truth. I'm a big truth guy. It comes up in my music, and so to hear this song so revealing, so naked, so perfect, so impressed. Like, I
mean, Martin King, is a legend. He was in Test Department. You know what I mean? Like, all his music is that great, but when you talk about being real, that's just it. I've talked to Martin a lot, and he is just the most chill, down-to-earth guy that you can possibly imagine for what he's seen and what he's done. You know what I mean? And he is exactly like that in real life as his songs are, which are just, like you said, very transportive. Like, they take you somewhere. Every time I listen to Dog Tablet, I can close my eyes and picture a place. I think that's one of the things I love so much about it.
Well, I completely agree. And I think what really, 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 really did it was the use of saxophone. Like, it was like that quality of saxophone from like Hall & Oates' Man-Eater, like that feeling, like I was like, I'm a kid again. This is so, and we're talking about being old and looking back. At the same time, I have this sort of jubilant remembrance of youth. It's wild. Like, I hadn't had something hit me like that in so long. And then the use of saxophone, which, the last time I can recall use of horns, like that, real horns, not synthesized, was like that Hate Department album back in the day. Remember the one with the bug on it? Yeah. And there was that ballad song about when my fingers lost their touch. Yes. Remember that?
I do. Yeah.
No, It's Not Cool to Want Me. I forgot what the name of that song was, but that song had that feel. So it was kind of like, wow, this is years later, and the same feeling has been evoked in my soul, and I'm happy that it happened. So I reached out to him, and is it Mark? He said Martin. Sorry, excuse me.
Yep.
We don't know each other, but I did reach out to him to tell him I thought it was awesome.
That's great. Well, you know what? I'll reach out to Martin for you. I'll have to, talk in one of your remixes down the line. We'll have to get Martin to remix you. He gives great remix too.
I would think that would be an honor, just because, wow, his work sort of speaks for itself. Super impressed.
Well, I'm going to change gears here and get a little silly, because we talked a little bit at the beginning because of your cool sci-fi backdrop that you have there. And we got talking a little nerd stuff, and I'm going to shift gears completely and talk a little Trek.
Let's do it.
I have been getting back into, I have really enjoyed this new wave of Trek, both Discovery and Picard, for different reasons. But I mean, the Trek community is always very volatile. So I was wondering if you've watched either, or if you are a big Star Trek fan.
So I have a history with Star Trek. And originally, I remember as a kid watching Next Generation when it first, like on regular TV when it first came out. And I remember there was this big hoopla about it, and it was exciting at the time. And I thought, wow, this is really good. And I liked it. And then I kind of got away from it. And then there was this side note. So do you remember when they had the Star Trek experience in Las Vegas on the Strip?
No, but I believe, that makes sense. I could see that, but I don't recall it off the top of my head. Well,
they had this amazing immersive Star Trek experience that was wild. Like it's worth going on YouTube and look up the Star Trek experience.
That sounds cool.
A couple of videos that'll take you through it. And so that sort of
the set built or something where you could walk around it.
They had the full on Deep Space Nine promenade where you could end up at Quark's place.
That's my jam. Deep Space Nine is my favorite track.
Yes. Until they went a little emissary heavy, but it was wonderful anyway. But you could go through, and even have right down to Romulan ales and stuff, and there's the Dabo girls and all that stuff. And then they had this ride, which was totally, they had all these really high quality, high caliber actors who were so into this 10-year run of this thing. It was you're in the middle of a reenacted Star Trek experience for real.
Yeah, I'm sad I missed that now.
And then a simulated ride where you were on a mission that goes awry, and you should check it out on YouTube. There's a few videos that'll take you through the whole thing. One of them's I think an hour long, and it takes you through everything right to the last day of it. So that really kind of charged my interest in it again. And then fast forward to more recent times with my wife, she was not a Trekkie, so I took her through Next Generation, and then we went through Deep Space Nine, and we went all the way through Enterprise with Scott Bakula. Did
you skip the intro song every time? Because that's my big problem. I'm okay with Enterprise until season 3, but the intro song I think is the worst song ever written for a television show ever. It kills me every time.
I don't know what they were thinking, because the show was so good, and then it was older.
And I love Scott Bakula. That guy's just dope. Quantum Leap.
Well, I also like the filming style where they had it very claustrophobic.
Yeah,
and that was really made you feel like you were there. So I thought that was really good. So long and short, I have not seen Picard and Discovery, and a lot of that is because I've kind of become a recent student of film, and I'm working on a script that's almost done right now for a film called Sleep, and then I'm involved with some other people. So most of my free time has really been studying films. By the way, mental note, there's a film called Come True.
Okay.
And look up Come True. It's on Amazon. Mm-hmm. That is an achievement of lower budget filmmaking that I have not seen anything this amazing in quite some time.
I'll check it out tonight while everybody's watching the Super Bowl.
I expect a review on Come True, because it is
fair enough. All right.
I've watched it several times. So anyway, I haven't
I got to give you one back though.
Okay.
You need to go look up the film Psycho Goreman. It is a low budget horror movie somewhere between Gwar, Hellraiser, and the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. It's glorious.
I'll check it out for sure. Thank you. So anyway, I have like a long list of things I haven't watched, but that's okay. Hopefully I'm alive long enough to watch some of those things.
Well, I think you should give them a try. I really like Discovery. It's a little hit and miss, and especially the first season, just like every Star Trek series ever, it takes a little while to get rolling, you know?
Yeah.
And Picard, I really like too. A lot of people didn't go in for it, but basically what it is a really good Tom Clancy spy novel set in the Star Trek world with Jean-Luc Picard. And like, if you don't view it as exactly Star Trek, because it isn't, it's a spy novel, and appreciate it for that, to me, it's a fun ride.
That sounds exciting to me. And I mean,
Yeah.
you know, Patrick Stewart.
I mean, you can't get...
Just watching him on film is a treat.
They bring him in and a couple times an episode, and he just chews scenes. And just, he's Patrick Stewart. He just knocks everything out of the park. But then they give a chance to develop all these other characters in the story and let it play out. And then a couple times an episode, he walks in and just crushes the shit out of it and walks away. It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I'll check it out for sure.
We are coming up on time here. So we're going to roll into the video for you and play. And why don't you, I'll Johnny Carson it here. Why don't you set the scene for this next clip that we're going to view of the song and what we're going to see.
So yeah, this song again is called "Closer Than Ever Before," and this song is actually going to be featured in the film Malibu Horror Story, which is an actual theatrical release film that should be coming out in the fall.
Any connection to Malibu's Most Wanted?
No, completely different.
Nobody's going to have bleach blonde hair in this one. Okay, got it.
So yeah, that movie is a really high caliber horror film. And I got involved on an executive producer level as well, because I believe in the film that much. And then my song will be in the full credit scroll of the film, which is exactly where I wanted it. So you get the whole song.
Yeah.
So that's going to happen. The music video is again the one that Eric Gustafson and I did, and we're super proud of it. It's quite exciting. And when right now we have our own film that we created and then sliced in shots to that from the music video we made. But when Malibu Horror Story comes out, we're going to edit in Malibu Horror Story footage and re-release it again. So it's going to get a double run, which is kind of cool. So Closer Than Ever Before is a song that it's another type of, it'll be very friendly for DJs and for the dance floor. And it's a song that I've kept improving. And the funny part is that when Eric did the remix of Darkness Never Lies, I went back again and then tweaked the song one more time because he gave me some ideas. And
we almost did that too. I hear you on that. We fought it because we're like, no, it's not fair. We can't. But well, it did get discussed. The idea of, oh, yeah, we should have done that on the original.
Well, what I did, because again, two different songs, Closer Than Ever Before, so it's a completely different song, but I actually sent the changes to Eric and said, what do you think? And he's like, oh, you nailed it, and I was like, all right, cool. So again, another benefit of knowing Eric, it just, this song just kept getting built, and here it is, and now we got the video for it. I'm super proud of it. I think that it's going to do well. I think people are going to like it, and can't wait.
Well, this has been wonderful talking to you, Eric. Here up is Darkness Never Lies, and I appreciate you so much coming on, and welcome back to the scene, brother. It's good to have you back.
Well, thank you for having me, but are you going to play Closer Than Ever Before, or are you going to play Darkness Never Lies?
Oh, that's the one you said. Which one would you rather have us play to promote?
I think at this point, I would go with Closer Than Ever Before because we're going to air this right around that time anyway.
Perfect.
Because that's the March 2nd date. So I think Closer Than Ever Before should be the one to go with.
Here we go. For all of you out there in interweb land, keep it dark, yo. This is Closer Than Ever Before.